Alright, hello everyone again. It is part 5 now. Now that we've talked about evaluating most kinds of minions, and now you have an idea of what some effects are worth, we're going to go through the spells and weapons of each particular class and go through them one by one. I imagine this video is going to be considerably longer than the other ones. I may break it into 2 parts if I can't do it all in this one sitting. I just played a couple games of League and they didn't go well, so hopefully everything ends up working out fine. Like I said, this is part 5. We're talking about the warrior today, so we're going to talk about the warrior strengths and weaknesses in arena, and then we're also going to talk about the spells and the weapons. So let's get started. Warriors' strengths involve very powerful early game control with the weapons that they have, mainly Fiery War Axe, as it's dubbed Fiery Wind Axe. This card is one of the most important cards to get when you're playing a warrior arena, and it also has late game control with having Execute to hard remove the board. Weaknesses are you have to draw those weapons, so you have to get your Fiery Wind Axes in your hand to start the game. Your hero power doesn't affect the board. Gain 2 armor is the equivalent of saying restore 2 health. That can only affect your hero, which, compare that to the priest, that's not very good. And the class cards themselves aren't exactly the strongest. They rely a lot on synergy, and they have the if your character is damaged effect. So their class cards aren't exactly very good. Also, warrior doesn't really have a good board clear card. They have Brawl, which is useless when you're ahead, even if your opponent plays a lot of stuff. So that's kind of an issue as well. Brawl can be a very powerful card, but for 5 mana, you typically want maybe a little bit stronger board clear. Alright, so we're going to start with weapons now. We have Fiery War Axe, which I just talked about as the most important card to get when you play warrior. So this card is obviously fantastic. It's because it costs 2 mana, and it deals with all 2 mana 2 cost minions, and twice, obviously, and it also deals with some 3 and some 4 cost minions as well very effectively. We have Arcanite Reaper next. Arcanite Reaper is good as well. It has 5 attack, obviously, and 2 durability. The problem is it costs 5 mana, so it is a considerable investment, unlike the Fiery War Axe. And deal 5 damage. There's not a lot of, well, there's a fair amount of cards that cost or have 5 health, but mostly those are kind of 4 cost minions, and so if you play the Arcanite Reaper on turn 5 against your opponent's Chillwind Yeti or whatever they played a turn ahead, you're probably behind on the board, which is usually bad. Gorehowl is one of the most I should say, Arcanite Reaper is above average, but you don't want more than 1 of them or more than 2 of them at the absolute most. The card is still good because it allows you to catch up on the board, but it's not as good as Fire War Axe because it costs so much. Now that I've used that logic to justify why Arcanite Reaper is bad, Gorehowl, I'm going to say, is fantastic. And the reason why Gorehowl is fantastic is because the card possibly, in theory, has 7 durability. And when a card has 7 durability, you have a very high chance of being able to completely take over control of the game with the card. Also, it's 7 damage. 7 damage is really a lot. It can take care of almost every single minion. There are very few minions that have more than 7 health. Like Kel'Thuzad is one of them, has 8 health. But most minions that you're going to come across in arena will be killed by this first hit of the Gorehowl. And the second hit of the Gorehowl, which is the 6 mana, or sorry, not 6 mana, the 6 attack thing will also likely take out something, and the 5 attack will likely as well. So you have a lot of opportunities with your Gorehowl over a progression of turns to really acquire a lot of value, and that's why the Gorehowl is so good, compared to the Arcanite Reaper, which only has the 2 durability and has the 2 guaranteed hits. The Gorehowl does cost a lot of mana, so sometimes it can be bad, especially if you're behind and there's a lot of like little stuff on the board. But that's the case with almost all weapons anyway. We have 2 more weapons for Warrior. Ogre Warmaul is probably the biggest disappointment out of the Goblins versus Gnomes set in terms of like any card ever, because in theory, you look at it and you look at the Death Spite, and then you look at the Ogre Warmaul, and it costs 1 less mana. But the fact is, if your weapon hits the face, or if it hits the wrong target, so if your weapon misses your target and hits the face, it's a 3 mana, 50% chance to deal 4 damage to the right target you're looking for. Which is really bad, because you're playing the card to gain like advantage. That's why you have weapon. If you played a 3 mana deal 4 damage spell, first off, you want it to hit. Second of all, you lose a card from your deck, and you don't sacrifice any life for doing that. With the Warmaul with the weapon, you're obviously sacrificing your life to do that, and it's just really weak. I mean 4/4 attack is good, but if you think about it, 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy always has the chance to go to face, and if it goes to face, you're like really missing out on the weapon and the point of having a weapon. So that's why it is. Actually, I take back the fact that I say it's really bad. It's really bad in constructed play, but it's below average in Arena. In Arena, you can still make this card work, especially if it's against 2 really bad picks, because it's still a weapon and it has that chance to do well. Alright, Death Spite. Death Spite is good because on its second swing, it can take out a 5 health minion. The Death Rattle can be useful sometimes with the synergistic effects of the warrior. You don't want to draft for synergy necessarily, but the card is very good because it's 4 mana, deal 4 damage twice, which is good. Kind of the same principle as to why Fiery War Axe is good. Death Spite doesn't. Let's put it this way: Death Spite is better than Arcanite Reaper because it can do the same as Arcanite Reaper on the second swing, but can still be played a turn earlier. I hope that makes sense. If not, please let me know below, and I'll try to clarify it as best I can. Alright, so spells. We're going to go in ascending mana cost order. Some of the quality of the pictures is bad, some of the colors are weird. I don't know. I just tried to pull all the images off of Google. Just try to make it as clear as possible so that we can keep going through the PowerPoint. So I think what I want to do for evaluating spells is I want to evaluate them on a scale of basically 1 to 10 and explain why they're good or why they're bad. I haven't come up with any of these ratings ahead of time, so hopefully I don't go crazy. Inner Rage, I'll probably give it a between 2 and 4. The reason I say is between 2 and 4 is because it has synergistic effects with some of the warrior stuff. This card is either deal 1 damage to an enemy, or deal 1 damage to a minion and deal 1 damage to a 1 health creature, or deal 1 damage to your allied minion and give it 2 attack. The reason why I consider this card so low is because 0 mana deal 1 damage doesn't justify yourself in a deck as removal, and the card itself just doesn't do enough, and it requires you to already have a board. It requires you to already have things that are playable, and if your opponent is ahead and is winning and constantly clearing your minions every single turn, then playing Inner Rage can't ever be played. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help you at all. So that's why this card is kind of bad. Execute is the warrior's prime removal card, so I'm going to give it a probably between a 7 and an 8. Like, this card is really important to playing a warrior if you can get it. Generally, you want to pick it up. You want one maybe 2. It's not the best removal card, obviously, because it has to be damaged and you have to damage it somehow. But you generally have a lot of methods to damage a card, whether it's with your weapons, whether it's with your minions, and if they're constantly clearing your minions, likely they're also doing that with some minion combat as well, so you'll have a chance to get an execute on a bigger target. Not always perfect, but it costs 1 mana. What do you expect? Compared to the just destroy an enemy minion, which is 5 mana, considering Assassinate, which is the rogue card, which we'll get into later. Whirlwind, deal 1 damage to all minions. This is bad if you don't want 1 damage to be dealt to all your own minions, and it's bad because it's 1 mana, deal 1 damage. This is kind of like if you look at the card Arcane Explosion from Mage. Yes, board clear is good, but no, board clear that's only 1 damage generally doesn't do enough because it doesn't kill any creatures on its own. And that's the case here. Whirlwind just really doesn't do enough. Sometimes you'll get some cool effects with Frothing Berserker or your what's it called? Acolyte of Pain, but most of the time you don't have the same tools as you have at your disposal in constructed play, so not very good. What do I give this on a scale of 1 to 10? Probably 2 to 4 again. I'll keep it with the Inner Rage. Upgrade. This card is probably a solid 4, I'd say. If you have weapons in your deck, this card is good. Because... well, no, not really. If you have weapons in your deck, and you happen to draw your upgrade, and you use it on a weapon, you have gained a massive advantage. Otherwise, equip a 1/3 weapon. Equipping a 1/3 weapon is equipping a strictly worse Light's Justice, which is the Paladin weapon, 1 mana, 1 attack, 4 durability, and that card is terrible, or considerably below average. So, picking up the 1/3 weapon is awful, so you never want to do that. And this is one of those cards you can only pick once you have a very weapon-heavy deck already. It's dependent on another card, which is why it's bad in Arena. Cards that are dependent on other cards, as we've talked about before, are bad because you want each card to do something on its own to justify its slot in the deck. This card isn't as bad as the other cards, but like I said, it's dependent on having other weapons, otherwise it's terrible. Shield Slam. So, it's hard to talk about Shield Slam without talking about, I think, holy shit. There we go, that card, Shield Block. And Shield Block is gain 5 armor, draw a card. This is going to be your only real case of drawing, gaining armor outside of using your hero ability. And if you have to use your hero ability, generally that's pretty bad. Also think about it in the sense that in the early game you want to remove a card. Let's say you're going first, and you reach turn 2 and you hero power, or turn 2 you play something. You have nothing to play on turn 3. He plays something, and then you want to armor up Shield Slam. Dealing 2 damage for 3 mana is considerably below average again. And so it's not very good to be dependent on your armor to be able to deal damage. I'll try to rephrase this. I'll say this very simply. You want to clear the board with your weapons, which costs health. That means that you won't have a lot of armor. The only way to gain a good amount of armor is a spell that's already below average, and therefore you generally won't have a lot of armor to use your Shield Slam for. And therefore Shield Slam is bad because it's dependent on your opponent not being good enough, like not necessarily being good enough, but not being able to effectively deal with everything that you're putting out. And by that point you'd win already. It's kind of a win more card, and win more cards are bad. I'll give this card a 4 as well. Maybe a 5. It has some uses, and it can sometimes be, it's dependent on synergy again. It's another like major warrior weakness. Alright, Heroic Strike. Heroic Strike is probably maybe a 3, 2 or 3 on the scale. Give your hero +4 attack this turn. Can sometimes be good, but it's 2 mana, deal 4 damage once isn't as good. It's not as good as a weapon, basically. If you can pick this, or you could pick a weapon, you'd pick the weapon because the weapon can attack multiple times. And sometimes you can play Heroic Strike with a weapon, and all of a sudden your Fiery Wind Axe has 7 attack for one turn, which is good. But Heroic Strike isn't as bad in Arena as it is in constructed play, because you can still use it to clear the board and still use it to kind of be effective. But it's just unlikely to justify the fact that you're paying 2 mana to use your face to clear something. Like, it costs you a large amount of health, and it costs you I don't know. The more I think about this card, the more I kind of regret giving it a low rating. Maybe I want to bump it up a little bit, because 2 mana deal 4 damage isn't bad. It's just the fact that you also have to use your face, and you also have to. It doesn't work past taunt, and those are the main real reasons. I still consider it a below average card, but maybe I'll bump it up to a 4, and I don't know. The more I think about it, the more it doesn't seem as bad as I anticipated. Alright, let's keep going. Battle Rage. Draw a card for each damage-friendly character. Most likely, you are. Oh, we talked about this before, actually. Draw a card is worth 1.5 mana. So if you can get your Battle Rage to hit 2 targets, that's good. But do you want a card that does nothing but cycle other cards? Generally, that's bad, because it's kind of wasting your. It's wasting a card to draw more cards, and now you're already down in the 2 mana on their turn. I don't know. The way I want to consider this card is your face will likely be damaged, so you'll guaranteed get 1 card out of it. But the likelihood of getting other cards out of it is not as good, and it's not guaranteed, and paying 2 mana to draw a card is pretty bad. So this card is worse than Heroic Strike. So I'll probably give it a 3 or 4. Cleave. Deal 2 damage to 2 random enemy minions. The random part isn't as bad as people may think, because it's hitting 2 of the minions already. So if you have 2 minions on the board, it's going to hit them. And if you have 3 of them, the odds are you're likely going to at least hit 1 or 2 of the desired targets. So this is 2 mana, deal 4 damage. Again, without using your face, and can more effectively deal with smaller threats without damaging the board that you've created. This is a board clear card, and board clear cards are generally pretty good. This card is probably a 6 or a 7. It's not a pick that you always want to pick up. Like it's a 1 maybe. You take 1 of them early in the deck, and then you just kind of ignore all the ones afterwards. But it's better than every other card, or most of the other cards that we've already talked about. It's like Warrior's just considered weak in Arena as it is, and there's some fair reasons for it. But I've had some good Arena runs with it, and it's just it really depends on what you can do with weapons. Like, the more weapons you have, the better you do, and the more you can support it with your spells. That's why we're talking about spells. Alright, Rampage. Give a damage minion +3/+3. +3/+3 for 2 mana is fantastic, but can you guarantee that your minions will have enough health to be damaged so that you can give them this buff? Not always, but it's a card that's... Alright. If I was to rate this card, I would rate it 3 to 6, depending on how many high health cards you have in your deck that could be buffed by this card. Once again, it's one of those deals where when you play a card, when you have this card in your hand, you want to be able to play it on its own. You want to be able to play it when you draw it, and that's not always going to be the case. You're not always going to have a damaged minion, and you can't always guarantee that your damaged minion will survive to the next turn, or kind of get in the way. It's a later game card, really. It's more valuable when you have damaged big guys, like large, heavy hitting, like Boulder Fist Ogres and shit, that get damaged, I guess, really much more easily than something like a 1 health or a 2 health creature, or a 1 health creature would never work with Rampage. A 3 health creature or something like in the early game that's more easily destroyed. Alright, so what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is it's not good in the sense that it's dependent on another card to be good, but it's good because it's a lot of stats for its cost. So, mediocre at best. Slam. Deal 2 damage to a minion if it survives, draw a card. This is good because we talked about this. One 1 mana is, or sorry, 1 damage is 0.66 mana. We talked about this in the first video when I couldn't do math. So 2 damage is 1.33. What is it? 4/3, I guess. 4/3 mana. And so that means that we need 0.66 mana to make up the rest of the card. And draw a card is 1.5 mana. So 1.33 plus 1.5 is 2.88, which is, or 2.83, which is considerably higher than the 2 cost that it is. So in the case you get to draw with this card, it's good. And generally, 2 damage isn't going to be enough to kill something, but hopefully you have the board to effectively deal with it, and maybe you could draw into something with the card that you draw. This card is pretty good. I give it a 8. Did I give Execute an 8? Maybe I'll give it a 7 then. 7 to 8. Let's go. Commanding Shout. Your minions can't be reduced below 1 health this turn. Draw a card. This card is good if you have a board. It's good if you have a low-cost deck. It's bad if you have to use it just to draw the card. But 0.5 mana, your minions can't die this turn, is good. But it's not good if your opponent is a mage, or if your opponent has any kind of board clear, if your opponent has anything that can effectively deal with the Commanding Shout that you're playing. So it's average. It's average. I'll put it that way, because let's say that you have a board full of like 1, 2, 3 health minions, and you use your Commanding Shout, and you draw a card, and then you use it to trade into like an ogre or something that survives. That's good. If you can force your opponent to use removal cards to take care of the kind of mess you've created with your Commanding Shout, then you've probably done a good job with it. But there is the case that it's only 1 card. Your minions have to survive a turn that your opponent's played, so that you can use this card and then attack. I don't know if I worded that strangely, so I'll try to say it again. You play your minions, your opponent does whatever, your minions have to survive for your next turn for your Commanding Shout to be effective. And that's been the bane of most of these, like Rampage, the other cards that we talked about, that need to that necessarily need to survive a turn. And so that's why Commanding Shout can be bad. It's average though. I give it a 5. Revenge. Deal 1 damage to all minions. If you have 12 or less health, deal 3 damage instead. This card is pretty garbage because it's to all minions. So if you're at 12 or less health and you need this card and you have no board to play it on, you're probably going to lose anyway, because your opponent is probably way ahead because they've gained the advantage overall. So considering its best case scenario where you have no board to be destroyed by it and they have a big board to be destroyed by it, and you have 12 or less health, so you get the bonus damage. It's like, okay, so this card we talked about, Whirlwind, is 3 mana, or like I gave it a 3 out of 10. I don't know why I said 3 mana. I'm obsessed with the word mana today. Deal 1 damage to all minions is Whirlwind. So Whirlwind costs 1 mana and is bad. Whirlwind that costs 2 mana is garbage. But it adds the caveat: if you have 12 or less health, deal 3 damage instead. If you have 12 or less health, deal 3 damage instead. So it's still 3 damage to all minions, so you can destroy your own board with it as well. And the occasions in which this card will save you are so minimal, that is why this card is bad. I give this card a 1. Like, this is probably I think this is the worst warrior card. Alright, let's keep moving. I know we're been going for a while already. Alright, Charge. Give a friendly minion +2 attack and charge. This card is not dependent on that 1 turn that I said, the 1 turn of setup that the other cards have succumbed to, but plus 2 attack and charge, is that really worth 3 mana? Give a minion plus 2 attack is also on cards like Abusive Sergeant, which is a 1 mana card, so, and it also has a body with it. So I mean, I guess you could evaluate it as kind of like a 1 mana, half a mana kind of thing. Is charge worth 2.5 mana? I don't really think so. But there are times that this card can be used, especially in Arena. You play a 2-cost minion, like a Bloodfin Raptor. I've used Bloodfin Raptors a lot in the series as well. So 2 mana, 3/2. It's on turn 5. So you play your charge, and you have 5 mana, deal 5 damage, which sometimes is important to have. It's bad because it's no Arcanite Reaper, which is deal 5 damage twice. This kind of made up my mind, and now the more I'm talking about it and the more I'm saying everything aloud, the more bad charge is starting to look. Because I was thinking that if you play your Bloodfin Raptor and then you play charge and then you kill a minion with 5 health, it's not that bad. But it is still kind of bad because you're using 2 cards to get rid of their 1 card, and there could be many other potential options in terms of other cards that you could have picked that would do the job better. So that kind of makes up my mind. I think charge is around a 3 or a 4. Shield block. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. Gain 5 armor, draw a card. So draw a card's worth 1.5 mana. So is gaining 5 armor worth 1.5 mana? This is the equivalent of saying shield block 3 mana, draw a card, do nothing. Because if you gain 5 armor, there are very, very few cases in which that 5 armor will guarantee your victory over your opponent. Most likely, it will just stall that victory for your opponent another turn. Or you're using it to cycle to draw the card. So that's why shield block is below average. It's good in constructed play because you need all the health to effectively use your weapons over and over and over again, and you have a lot of synergistic effects with armor, like you have the shield slams with a whole bunch of ways to actually use your shield slam. So that's why it's good in also cycles a card. That's why it's good in constructed, and it's not good for basically the same reasons in Arena. Alright, let's keep going. We're almost there. Bouncing Blade. Deal 1 damage to a random minion. Repeat until a minion dies. This card is... What do I think about this card? This card is probably a 4 or a 5. This card is bad in the sense that if you have a board, you're in trouble. This is like a mini Brawl, actually. It's like you hope to damage everyone's stuff, but in the case that you don't, you only get 1 minion dead, and it could be your own minion as well. It's actually like an anti-Brawl. Now that I think about it, Brawl destroys every minion except 1. This destroys only 1 minion, except it damages all the other ones as well. There are very, very few instances in which you can make a combo with Grim Patron work, or you can make your what's it called, Acolyte of Pain draw cards or whatever. But once again, if you want cards that are dependent on other cards, that's the problem. Cards aren't good if they require synergy, and you don't want to draft necessarily for synergy until you get towards the end. And so this card is not good enough to be a board clear card, like Cleave. Like, I wouldn't consider this as good as Cleave. And it's not. It has that shit where warriors attack their own creatures, and you can kill your own shit. And if you kill your own stuff, I don't know why I changed from swear words to none. If you kill your own stuff, then it's just bad. Like, it's like I will remove my stuff for you, my opponent. I'd like to make this game easier for you. Mortal Strike. Deal 4 damage. If you have 12 or less health, deal 6 instead. So we know that the standard 2 mana deal 3 damage is the cookie cutter acceptable thing. So in the case that you have 12 or less health, Mortal Strike is the average cookie cutter. 2 mana, deal 3 damage, 4 mana, deal 6 damage. Which in terms of value is fine. and sometimes it can be very useful in killing larger minions. But 4 mana, deal 4 damage is garbage, so I don't suggest picking this card. Bouncing Plate I gave a 4 or 5. This card I give probably a 4 or 5 as well. Alright, I think this is the last two, right? Brawl and Crush. Brawl is your kind of board, this is your board clear card. So destroy all minions except one that's chosen randomly. And Brawl is, it's that oh my god, I don't know, it's like I'm saying the same thing over and over again. If you destroy your own creatures with Brawl, it's bad for the fact that you spent so much time and effort developing those cards, and then you just lost them. Like, you lost every single one except one. And in that sense, Brawl's bad. But Brawl is the only way that warriors really have to clear the board if they're considerably or disgustingly far behind, and therefore Brawl is pretty good. Brawl is also hard to get in Arena because it's a epic. Is that what purples are called? Yeah. So if you pick it up, it's probably at a premium, which kind of sucks as well. I don't know. This is probably the best purple that warriors have to offer, though. So you got that going for it. I'll give this card a 6 or a 7. This is your prime removal. This is what you need. No, it's not even what you need. You can win without Brawl with no problem. And there's kind of limited times as well that Brawl's really effective for you. I don't know. Do I want to say 6? I'll say 5 to 6. Brawl is, it's the same shit with every other warrior card that kills your own, damages your own stuff. It's anti-development of your board, and that sucks. Alright, Crush, finally. Destroy a minion. If you have a damaged minion, this costs 4 less. So destroy a minion for 3 mana is good, because Assassinate is 5 mana, which is the same effect as this is. And Sabotage is destroy a random enemy minion for 4 mana. And Deadly Shot, which is the Hunter, destroy a random enemy minion, costs 3. So, would you have the opportunity to destroy an enemy minion, and this minion, well, technically you could also destroy your own Sylvanas, because you can destroy ally minions, but that's completely irrelevant. If you have a damaged minion, this costs 4 less, so 3 mana, destroy minions, good, but how often are you going to get damaged minions? How often? This is another card that's dependent on you playing your creatures surviving to the next turn, and then surviving the attack that they make, so that this card can get the value that is the 3 mana destroy minion. So this card's like shit again. So many warrior cards are almost frustrating to evaluate, because I want warrior to be good in Arena. I love playing control warrior, but there's a reason it's considered the worst one. And I'm not saying don't play warrior. I'm saying I want to encourage everyone to play the classes that they find fun at all times. Like, I really like playing Hunter in Arena for no reason whatsoever. I just think it's unique because I haven't played it as much. But Crush, it's not very good. I'll give it a 3. And with that, we've gone through every single spell. So this is different than the other videos we've done, where we've been pretty general. And now I've gone through all the spells, talk about them in terms of Arena, and hopefully it made sense. Hopefully you liked it. I have. Apparently I'm really tired. Hopefully this video wasn't too slow. It's really long. I can tell already. What time is it? It's 11:14. Shit. Well, I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm probably gonna put timestamps of each individual spell on the underneath in the description, so that I can make it easy. Be sure to check out the playlist. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna do one for each one of these. Hopefully it won't be as long as this one, but it is what it is. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.